you're likely spending about 80% of your psychic energy on a complete illusion.
Yeah, it's exhausting, honestly.
It really is. You do, I mean, I do it. We are literally draining our brains day in and day out just to, maintain a facade of the perfect harmonious family.
Like that holiday photo sitting on the mantelpiece.
Exactly. The one where everyone is wearing matching colors, smiling at the camera, looking like an unbroken circle of peace.
We cling to that image because the alternative, like letting people see the actual chaos behind closed doors, it just feels entirely too dangerous.
Right. But that two-dimensional photo hides a very messy, complex, three-dimensional reality. I'm talking about unspoken rules, old resentments, and desperate attempts to just keep the peace.
Oh, for sure. It's a full-time job.
So today, our mission for this deep dive is to explore what really happens when the facade cracks.
Which it always does, eventually.
Always. What happens to a family ecosystem when that projection shatters? To answer that, we are looking at the remarkable work of Dr. M.G. Lazarus.
And his perspective is incredibly rare because he operates at the highest levels of two completely different worlds.
Yeah, he's got quite the background.
He really does. He's a mental health social worker with over 30 years of frontline clinical experience dealing with severe family trauma. But he's also an ordained Catholic deacon.
And the Clergy Director of ACCORD, right?
Yep.
Over in Clonmel.
Exactly. So he represents this profound combination of the clinical and spiritual worlds.
He lives right at the intersection of clinical psychology and deep spiritual theology. Today's deep dive pulls directly from his books, Bonds and Blessings, and From Tears to Tranquility.
Along with some absolutely fascinating resource material from his Cafe Theology talks.
Right. And to really get the most out of his work today, we are going to lean into that duality. I am going to put on the hat of the senior clinician.
And I will take on the role of the deacon.
Exactly. So we are going to look at the brain behaviors, the psychological systems, and the emotional first aid. And you'll be covering the theology, the spiritual grace, and, the deeper hunger of the soul.
Those two lenses usually operate in separate silos, but when you bring them together, you get a much clearer picture of human suffering and endurance, really.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can analyze a family in crisis, we have to look at the clinical definition of a family.
Because it's not just people living in a house.
No, not at all. In psychology, Murray Bowen's family systems theory is the gold standard here. Bowen tells us that a family is not just a collection of distinct individuals who happen to share a mailing address and a data plan.
Right, it's so much deeper than that.
It is a homeostatic living ecosystem.
It functions almost like a single biological organism. Every single cell is reacting to the state of the surrounding cells.
Yes, and it happens on a subconscious chemical level. Think of it like an intricate garden ecosystem. The parents are the soil.
Okay, I like that analogy.
The siblings are competing plant species adapting to get sunlight. And the emotional climate, like the unspoken rules, the communication styles, that is the weather.
So when the weather changes, everything else has to adapt.
Exactly. When a parent comes home carrying intense work stress, they don't just look stressed. Their cortisol levels subtly change the posture of their body, the tone of their voice, the pacing of their steps.
And everyone else in the house picks up on it.
Immediately, the toddler unconsciously senses that shift in the weather and acts out to draw focus. Meanwhile, the teenager withdraws into their room to avoid the incoming storm.
So every member is continuously adapting to keep the ecosystem from collapsing.
Right.
And that actually brings us back to that terrifying statistic about our psychic energy.
The 80%.
Yeah. Dedicating 80% of your mental bandwidth to masking your authentic self is a survival mechanism. We are terrified that if we expose our true needs or our deep resentments, we will be the one who breaks the ecosystem.
We maintain the facade because the vulnerability feels lethal.
Exactly.
I mean, the hypervigilance required to calculate your tone of voice, monitor your partner's moods, and constantly walk on eggshells, it is neurologically exhausting.
It's totally draining. And to understand why we isolate ourselves behind that mask, Dr. Lazarus offers a really powerful parable in his Cafe Theology material.
Oh, the Misty Lake one.
Yes, the Misty Lake. So picture a beautiful, still Irish lake, completely blanketed in a dense, blinding morning mist.
Okay, setting the scene.
Sitting alone in a small wooden boat is a fisherman, and he is praying with absolute desperation for just one catch because his family on the shore is starving.
So the stakes are life and death for him.
The ultimate stakes.
Yeah.
But beneath the surface of the water, completely hidden by the mist, there's a large fish, and that fish is also praying.
Wait, the fish is praying.
Yeah, it is praying to survive the fisherman's hook so it can return to its own kind and live.
So it's a zero-sum game. If God answers the fisherman, the fish dies. If God answers the fisherman starves. It feels like the ultimate unwinnable family argument.
It really does, right?
Yeah, there's no compromise where both individuals get their specific prayer answered.
What's fascinating here is how Dr. Lazarus reframes the role of God in this scenario.
How so?
Well, God is not just a cosmic referee flipping a coin to pick a winner. God is the orchestrator of grace.
The orchestrator of grace.
Right. He doesn't always answer the specific outcome we demand. He answers the deeper hunger of the soul. The mist in this parable is the crucial element here.
Because they can't see each other.
Exactly. It represents our blinding emotional states during a conflict. When we are in the middle of a fight, our amygdala takes over. We are trapped in our own boat, entirely focused on our own survival, our own starvation.
We are blinded by our own panic. We completely miss the hidden struggles and the perfectly valid needs of the person sitting right across the kitchen table from us.
The mist isolates us entirely. We maintain the facade because we genuinely believe we are the only ones struggling to survive the lake.
But that blinding mist doesn't just stay out on the water. It follows us right into our living rooms.
It definitely does.
Let's take this psychological blindness and apply it to a terrifying real-world scenario from the book Bonds and Blessings. This is the story of the Johnson family.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this story is intense.
They're the textbook definition of the 80% facade. To their wider community, the Johnsons were the gold standard.
They were the family everyone else compared themselves to.
Absolute pillars of perfection. Dr. Lazarus describes attending a jubilant family party at their home. On the surface, the air is filled with laughter. There is incredible food. Multiple generations are mingling.
But he sees right through it.
Oh, completely. A trained clinician looking past that holiday photo exterior sees the micro expressions. The laughter doesn't actually reach the eyes.
Just going through the motions.
Right. There is a palpable, heavy tension in the room. You can watch the family doing a highly choreographed, desperate dance to avoid the elephant in the room.
They're burning through all their psychic energy, just holding back the weather.
Yes. But you can only suppress that kind of atmospheric pressure for so long before a storm breaks.
And it broke hard. Hours after that party ended, at like 2 in the morning, the facade violently shattered.
Tell them what happened.
Dr. Lazarus receives an urgent, frantic call and rushes over to the Johnson house. The scene he walks into is an absolute nightmare. The house is poorly lit. In the kitchen, the father and his teenage son are locked in a standoff.
Just a total breakdown of the system.
And both of them are brandishing knives. It is a display of raw, lethal anger and absolute despair. Huddled in the corner of the kitchen, in sheer terror, are the mother and daughter.
See, my instinct in a knife fight is just to run. Human fight-or-flight biology screams at you to get out of the room or immediately call the police.
Which makes sense.
Right, because the prefrontal cortex, the logical part of the brain, it just shuts down, and the primal survival brain takes the wheel.
You're operating on pure instinct.
I'd imagine the hardest part of a clinician's job in that scenario is fighting their own adrenaline dump just to stay planted in the room. How did Dr. Lazarus not just flee?
That is where the mastery of his dual experience comes in. He utilized a concept called emotional first aid, which is grounded in something called controlled emotional involvement.
Controlled emotional involvement.
Yes. He had to override his own panic to become the calmest entity in the room. The immediate goal in a lethal standoff is not to unpack years of deep-seated family resentment.
Right. You cannot do couples counseling or family therapy during a knife fight.
Exactly. You have to stop the bleeding first. You have to lower the temperature of the room before you can even assess the damage to the ecosystem.
So what did he actually do?
He didn't yell. He didn't try to physically disarm them or tackle them, which obviously would have escalated the violence. He used a gentle, incredibly steady, authoritative voice, and he commanded them to physically slow their movements down.
Wow.
Crucially, he validated their pain without for a second endorsing their violent behavior. He looked at them and simply said, "I see you're both hurt. I see you're angry."
By saying, "I see you are hurt," he bypasses the aggressive posturing and speaks directly to the wounded ecosystem beneath the mist.
Yes, he acknowledges the starving fisherman, so to speak.
But the physical shift he orchestrates next is pure clinical brilliance. He asks them to set down the weapons, not just to remove the immediate physical danger, but as a psychological gesture of shelving the conflict.
And then he enforces a rule, right?
Yes. He enforces a very specific rule. Dialogue can only happen when everyone in the room is seated.
Getting them into chairs changes the entire energetic frequency of the kitchen.
It actually interrupts the neurological escalation cycle. When you are standing and holding a weapon, your brain is actively pumping adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. Your muscles are tensed, preparing for war.
You're ready to fight.
But the physical act of sitting down forces the body to send a signal back up the vagus nerve to the brain, telling it that the immediate physical threat is pausing.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It lowers the heart rate. It forces the primal brain to stand down just enough for the prefrontal cortex to come back online. It introduces a fragile, temporary peace where the family can finally take a single breath.
And that single breath is the first moment the mist begins to clear. But while de-escalation saves lives in the short term, we have to look at the long-term reality of family pain.
Right, the aftermath.
We have to fundamentally change how we view conflict itself. Society treats conflict within a family like a disease that needs to be eradicated.
Which is arguably the most destructive misconception in family dynamics. A family does not fail because they argue.
Not at all.
Conflict is not a symptom of a broken family. It is just the friction necessary for an ecosystem to grow, adapt, and renegotiate boundaries. It is diagnostic.
It tells you what needs fixing.
Exactly. The avoidance, like the 80% masking the Johnsons were doing all day at that party, suppressing their needs and smiling for the camera, that is what actually guarantees the explosion.
Because the pressure has nowhere to go.
Right. If you never let the pressure valve release in small arguments, you are just storing up dynamite for a 2 a.m. kitchen standoff.
But we also have to acknowledge that some 2 a.m. explosions are not born from everyday friction or suppressed arguments.
What do you mean?
There is a darker, much deeper kind of family pain that cannot be resolved just by communicating better. To explore this, Dr. Lazarus pulls from his book, From Tears to Tranquility, and shares Jenny's story.
Oh, Jenny, this one is heartbreaking.
It really is. Jenny was a widow who had suffered a sudden, incredibly tragic and senseless loss. She is sitting in his office, completely broken, and she hits what he calls the 2 a.m. question.
The lowest point.
Right. She looks up and screams, "Why, God, are you doing this to me?"
Here's where it gets really interesting. From a purely clinical standpoint, a therapist's job is to sit in that grief, validate the anger, and help her process the trauma.
Right, hold space for it.
But Dr. Lazarus is also sitting there as a deacon. From a traditional spiritual perspective, isn't screaming at God, like accusing the creator of torturing you, considered blasphemy by many?
A lot of people would think so, yes.
How does someone in a clerical collar sit with that level of unfiltered rage without rushing to correct her or offer cheap theological band-aids like he works in mysterious ways?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we arrive at one of the most profound insights in Dr. Lazarus's work. Jenny's scream is not blasphemy.
It's not.
No. Her cry is functionally identical to Jesus' cry on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me?"
The ultimate expression of feeling abandoned by the very system that is supposed to protect you.
Exactly. A closed heart never asks why. A person who has truly given up on God doesn't scream at him. They just go numb.
That makes so much sense.
When Jenny is screaming in that office, she is demonstrating immense, raw, vulnerable faith. You cannot cry out to avoid. Dr. Lazarus understood that God doesn't just sit on a distant cloud and passively observe our pain as a test.
He inhabits the pain.
Yes, he is right there in the agony and the confusion and the betrayal. Offering a theological cliche in that moment would be an insult to the sacredness of her grief.
But if God inhabits the pain, but he doesn't magically fix it, like if he doesn't bring Jenny's husband back or instantly rewire the Johnson family's generational trauma, how is a family supposed to survive the ongoing storm?
That's the real challenge.
How do you keep the ecosystem from drowning when the weather turns into a Category 5 hurricane?
That brings us to the profound paradox of prayer, which is outlined beautifully in the Cafe Theology talks. There is a line that perfectly captures this tension. "I asked for love, and God gave me troubled people to help."
Oh, that's heavy. We are psychologically wired to want God to act as a cosmic mechanic.
A cosmic mechanic.
Yeah, we want to drop our broken family members off at the garage, say a quick prayer, and pick them up fully repaired, shiny, and running smoothly an hour later.
We want the quick fix. But God rarely operates as a mechanic. God often shows up in the endurance.
The endurance.
He shows up in the long, slow, agonizing, but beautiful process of simply staying present with the people we love while they heal.
It's like we are praying for the storm to stop, but instead we are handed the blueprints to build a lighthouse.
That is beautiful. The lighthouse is the perfect metaphor for navigating a family crisis.
Oh.
Think about what happens when a teenager is spiraling into rebellion, or a spouse is drowning in a depressive episode. The immediate, frantic instinct of a parent or a partner is to dive into the turbulent water to save them.
Let's jump right in.
But if you dive into a thrashing, freezing ocean to save someone who is actively panicking, their survival instinct will cause them to push you under to get air. They will drag you down.
The savior drowns, the victim drowns, and the entire family ecosystem completely collapses.
Exactly. Instead of diving into the chaos, parents, spouses, and family members are called to be the lighthouse.
Stand firm.
A lighthouse does not try to control the weather. It doesn't jump into the sea to wrestle with the waves. It stands firm on solid rock. It stays completely present on the edge of the dark water, shining a brilliant, unwavering light to guide the ship home. But it accepts that it cannot steer the ship for them.
Now, I need to draw a very firm, crucial boundary here regarding the psychology of endurance.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Staying present as a lighthouse and enduring a storm does not mean enduring abuse. Dr. Lazarus makes this explicitly clear in his clinical practice and his writings.
It's such an important distinction.
There is a massive, definitive difference between a family struggling through a difficult emotional storm and a relationship that has turned violently toxic or abusive.
Right?
Both clinical psychology and the Catholic Church mandate that civil separation is necessary and just to protect human dignity in cases of abuse. The lighthouse must stand on solid rock. It cannot and should not stand on crumbling sand. No one is ever required to let themselves be destroyed in the name of saving someone else.
Enduring means holding space for love and healing, not subjecting yourself to harm. It is about protecting the relationship and offering grace where possible, without sacrificing your own safety or soul in the process.
The light can only shine if the structure itself remains intact.
Very well said.
Let's look back at the ground we've covered today. We started out floating on the misty lakes of our own egos, totally blind to the valid pain of the people sitting right next to us.
Trapped in the mist.
We explored the sheer neurological exhaustion of maintaining that 80% facade and the terrifying reality of what happens when it violently shatters.
Requiring literal, adrenaline-fighting emotional first aid in a kitchen at 2 in the morning.
And finally, we explored the courage it takes to stop demanding a cosmic mechanic and instead learn to stand firm as a lighthouse for the people we love.
If you're listening to this right now, and your own family ecosystem feels messy, loud, or fractured, please remember this. The presence of friction does not mean you are failing.
Not at all.
Conflict is just the weather rolling through the ecosystem. A family does not fall apart because of an argument. A family falls apart when love leaves the conflict. As long as you are standing on that rock, shining that light through the mist, you are doing exactly what you are called to do.
So what does this all mean? We spend so much energy during our family crises looking up at the sky, crying out, "Where is God? Why aren't you fixing this?"
We all do it.
But if God is actually found in the endurance, if the divine is found in the very friction that forces our family ecosystem to grow, adapt, and shed the false facade, then perhaps the real question you should be asking the next time the mist rolls into your home is not, "Where is God?" but rather, "What is God doing here that I cannot yet see?"
That's a profound shift in perspective.
Think about that the next time you look at that perfectly posed, smiling holiday photo on your mantelpiece. The real grace isn't captured in the frozen smile. It is found in the messy, beautiful, enduring survival of the people inside the frame.